is somebody that is a big fan of yours, and certainly we need to have these conversations, which I think are very important.
There we go.
Because Mr. Jay, welcome to Generational Change. And as we've been saying, it's very important that we do have these conversations because, the one thing maybe that you just brought up, which is something that.
So wait, Jay, maybe Jay.
Yeah.
Oh, we're both Jay. Well, you can call me Steve. Oh,
no,
sorry.
Her name is Maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right, it's Maybe. So I wasn't saying maybe. Gotcha.
Gotcha now. Sorry.
Yeah. So now you're meeting. Maybe is a candidate in for Congress in California. Is what? It's 28th
district.
Okay.
District. And you brought up a really great point, which is something that when we talk about what is the fight within the Democratic Party? Because obviously for most people, it's basically hitting a brick wall. But the one thing that we have talked about, in particular, what has happened in Nevada and what has happened in New York, is they are taking on much more of the Tea Party type approach, which is you can't just elect representatives who are not on the corporate payroll. You actually have to have an infrastructure in place to make sure that what you are expecting of them is ultimately going to get done.
Right.
And that, to me, is the argument that anyone who's fighting for a third party has the right idea about, is that if the people who you are electing are not actually answering to the people that got them elected in the first place, then the infrastructural problem within politics is really where our main battle lies.
Yeah.
And that's something that, and we're also going to bring in, I want to say, is it Afeni? Is that, Jen, she's doing, hitting the bong right before you hit the live stream. So it's all good.
Right.
And is it Afeni? Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, that's how you say it. That's right.
Beautiful.
How you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah. The only reason that I don't actually, I have smoked in here before, but where my office is, it opens up to the main part of my house and my kids are there. It's not that they don't know, but I don't know. I just feel like that's just not, so I'm much more covert and just hang out in my bathroom.
Completely understand.
They know. It's not but.
No, Jen is, that's one thing you could definitely say between Jen and Wasserman Schultz, is that Debbie is a drug warrior and Jen is legalize all of it. It's just very, very cut and dry. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is one of the issues we do face in this particular district because it does skew pretty old. And so, unfortunately, there is this generational gap that we are dealing with. But Afeni, Jay, please introduce yourselves to the audience for the first time. We're excited to have you guys here, and we're going to have a really lovely discussion also with maybe a girl. Like we said, we were going to do a panel this evening. We want to be able to have substantive conversations about the primary issues facing us right now. So the floor is yours. Please introduce yourselves.
I'll let you go first, Afeni.
Oh, hi. My name is Afeni. I'm a co-organizer with Freedom Fighters DC. Please donate to my grassroots org. The Instagram is at Freedom Fighters DC. And I am also a member of Fred Hampton Leftist. So, that's me.
Very cool. And Jay?
Yes, Jay on Twitter, known as, I feel like I have an echo here.
You sound good.
Yeah, okay. Jay and Jay and I am, they call me CJ or Compton J online. I'm also a member of the Fred Hampton Leftist. I do call myself a recovering liberal, so that's something I'd also add to my title. And yeah, I'm newly discovered my beliefs are left and just loving where I'm at. So that's me.
Okay, so one of the things we had sort of talked about, going forward, or certain actions, certain things that are priorities coming up, things that the left can do to kind of coalesce, something we can do to come together instead of be fighting, and having all sorts of problems. And one of those things is October 15th is the opportunity to do a general strike. And there's a national general strike. It's called October 15th or octoberstrike.org. Will you look and see what it is and then put it up?
Sure.
And I don't know who it is. I don't know who these people are. Nobody's really claiming this website. It's
could
really
be anonymous.
Could be anonymous. Don't really know. But the idea is good. And so I like the idea. I like what their demands are. Their demands are, I think, what, $20 minimum wage,
universal health
care, all the things that we all support. So the mission is good. And what they're suggesting is a national strike on October 15th. Now, obviously that means different things in different states. We're Florida, we're a right to work state. It's not reasonable to think that people are going to stand up and walk out. So what we would like to do down here for us, and I think this is something that could be a regional thing. For us, we want to take it as an opportunity to promote the PRO Act and really get behind the PRO Act, have maybe possibly do an action for the PRO Act, and also do a big promotion to get people to only shop small businesses. So, but my thoughts are that in states where maybe there can be walkouts or there can be strikes, that, you know, this is something that I feel like the left, we really need to all get behind labor. So I don't know, like, what do you guys think about that?
Well, actually, we covered this. I forget which podcast. Maybe it was the New Left podcast, but we covered the October 5th general strike, and we played a clip from. I don't think they were the organizers, but they knew a lot about it. And in the clip, they did mention that it initially began as a July general strike, but they weren't really organized. Like, for example, they didn't have a list of demands ready.
Right.
So it kind of just morphed, and they said, okay, let's push it back. And it became October 15th.
Yeah.
And
all
I
want people to check it out. We put the website up, guys. It's octoberstrike.com if you're just listening only, but I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah. So yeah, we covered it. You know, everybody has their own opinions. I'm all for any type of, you know, direct action. That's actually what I believe we should be doing as a priority, even over voting. Not saying not to vote, but to switch to priority. It needs to be direct action first, then voting second. My only critique, or my critique was of this, is that it's a one-day thing, and anytime we're using the word general strike for something that's once, it kind of waters down the word general strike, because we want something prolonged. That's what's going to work. So that was my critique, but you know, I'm not against this October.
So what
15th.
if it's just called October Strike?
Right. Yeah, that was my point in the podcast. It wasn't that we should not do it, but just we maybe should not call it a general strike. But outside of that, I'm all for any type of, you know, march, and I guess I would consider this more of a march, or maybe like a sit-in or sit-out of buying or participating in the economy. So I'm for that, absolutely. What are your thoughts, Afeni, talking about?
So, you know, I do support a strike, but I do not support a strike that I feel like is not going to be impactful. A one-day strike, yes, while that might give like might shake up the establishment a little bit, like I feel like the left needs to have a really serious conversation of what it looks like to organize an infrastructure outside of the government to make a strike that is long-term viable. And things like, and those infrastructures include mutual aid. Those infrastructures include some type of, like, you know, medical clinics that are community run. Those things include like violence interrupters. These are the things that we need to be organizing for if we're going to organize for a general strike. Because a general strike, honestly, in this country, if it is executed in the way that, you know, a lot of leftists imagine it, is going to cause a lot of, you know, chaos, drama. Yeah. And we need to be prepared for that. We need to be prepared for people losing their jobs. We need to be prepared for people to, you know, to be possibly under threat. Like, these are the things that we need to be prepared for. And, you know, it is laughable that we could think that we could do this one day thing and it be like enough. Like I feel like there are so many working class people, especially at this point, that are really at their wits' end with not being able to survive in the richest country in the world. So really tapping into that, tapping into, leaning into community and building trust within your community is something that I feel like on the left, we really just need to foster. And before we start to talk about having general strikes and things like that.
I mean, I guess the term general strike, like I said, this isn't my like brain.
Right, absolutely.
I just like the idea of us all using that date and doing something like in solidarity with labor. For us in Florida, we can't, there are no strikes. So that's not even something that I was even contemplating.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
Florida's a right to work state. They don't get to strike here.
Basically, it means that you can be fired at will.
Which is why we support the PRO Act, which was why we were going to use that date as an opportunity to just draw attention to that. But maybe, do you know anything, like, have you heard anything about this October strike at all? Do you know of this?
Yeah, I've heard about it, and I'm on board with what the previous speakers just said, that, I absolutely support this. I absolutely support any sort of strike or protest, because that's how you finally start to get the attention of the people that are higher up. But, when you're going up against these major corporations, a one-day thing is not going to be impactful enough. And also, we have to think about the fact that not every person who's employed by a business is employed by a big business. There are a lot of medium-sized and small businesses that also are not treating their employees right, that are not paying them enough. In fact, they can sometimes get away with it a little bit more than a large corporation can. I do think that those smaller and medium-sized businesses would be more impacted by a day strike. But I feel like both medium, small, and large-sized businesses would all be impacted. Again, if this was a week-long strike, if this was a month-long strike. But when you think about a large corporation, taking a day off is not going to impact them. Taking a week off, they can afford that. Once you start to get to the point where all of your employees are taking a month off, that's when they're going to start to notice that their bottom line is being hit. And that's ultimately is what is going to affect them and cause them to create these kinds of changes that are beneficial to employees, to workers, is, hit them where it hurts. And, going on a day-long strike is not going to hit them where it hurts. It's going to prove a point to some people, but if we really want to make a point, it's going to be longer, more substantial, and more widespread, in my opinion.
I definitely agree. I think that there is something to be said for longevity. A lot of times, we've seen different types of events that can kind of spark it from ultimately leading to something great. If you guys have watched our show, we are huge supporters of Chris Smalls and the efforts that he has made to unionize Amazon. Jordan Chariton is not only a friend of the show, he is actually a personal friend of mine. They have been covering what's going on in Staten Island. I think if one of those groups, particularly that group, is able to break through and unionize Amazon, I think that's the type of event that would spark some type of a workers, you want to call it revolution, I'm fine with that, but something that is going to empower labor in this country. It really just takes one domino. And if you guys have obviously been paying attention with what actually did happen down in Bessemer, Alabama, they basically cheated. They didn't actually legitimately win that union vote.
They can't ever legitimately win. That's why they're bullies and they cheat. My only concern, listening to what everyone's saying about, I'd love to see us be able to sustain a long-term movement. That's another thing, again, Bo, always talking about building these community networks and building the ability to be able to sustain yourself outside of any sort of government assistance. And I think that's really important. My concern is, as a movement on the left, quite honestly, we couldn't even get our act together to have a unified Medicare for All rally day. So the idea of us being able to get our act together to actually do something to sustain people when we're sitting there and fighting over petty nonsense all the time, that's the problem, which is why we tend to really like to focus on labor issues, because I really feel like that is the unifying factor, and that will be our strength. That is how this works. We need a labor party. We don't have a labor party.
Yeah, we found that even with some of the activist communities that we try to engage in doing a Medicare for All march down here, there's way too much of that drama that we talked about.
Ridiculous.
But what we have discovered is that there are some amazing allies in the labor movement. And a lot of people in the labor movement don't like political labels. Like, that really is of no interest to them. They only happen to fight on the Democratic side because the Democrats tend to
No, give lip service
give
to
lip
their
service to
and they
their,
don't. And the rank and file, by the way, don't get a choice. And the union leaders, like our representative, is in cahoots with our local AFL-CIO chair.
That is
and we
without
didn't even
question.
get a screening. So
we say his name all the time.
Dan Reynolds.
Dan Reynolds is the head of the Broward County AFL-CIO.
He is an impediment to progress.
He has been Debbie Wasserman Schultz's biggest political firewall, if you will, for I guess 3 decades.
And she's somebody that wanted to fast track the TPP. Yes. Actually, we have friends in the labor community that told us this story about that they were at some sort of meal with her. I don't know, they were eating dinner or whatever. And she turned to these are labor guys, and like not just high up labor guys, like labor guys. And she turns to them and says, I don't know what your guys' problem is with trade agreements. Yeah.
So that pretty much says
that's my representative.
Yeah, and that's and
yet they endorse her.
So that's where, and that was something that we did discover in the 2016 election, which was so impactful in terms of waking people up, is that anytime the rank and file were allowed to vote on the union endorsement, it always went to Bernie. Anytime the union endorsement was made exclusively by the board, it always went to Hillary. So right there, to me, that just kind of defines, where we are in terms of the movement as it stands right now.
We need our labor.
So how do you guys feel as far as, we emphasize it as being a non-corporate, non-partisan labor movement. Do you guys see that as being essentially the pathway forward to our success?
I think that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I actually think that we need solidarity and not necessarily unity. And when you mentioned earlier about infighting, I don't see it as infighting on the left. I see it as leftists fighting with liberals who are calling themselves leftists. That's how I see it. So those now, what you're referring to as infighting and what I'm thinking may be two different things, because I'm not involved with a lot of stuff. Like somebody asked me to say something on the show and I had no idea I don't know who this person is. I don't know what that is because I'm not involved in that type of interaction. So I don't know what that is. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, for example, the infighting with the forced to vote, for example. So I'm not talking about petty personalities. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about, genuine disagreements on whether we should have did forced to vote. That's a policy disagreement. So the way I feel like we're going to move forward is through solidarity and through direct action. We were talking a lot about electoral politics. That's just not where I'm at. I'm not there. You've said a lot of things that quite personally, I don't even know what it is because I'm not invested in knowing electoral politics right now. And that's just, where I'm at, honestly. So I can critique the system, but I think the system needs to be destroyed, not reformed. So right. That's the perspective I'm coming into the discussion about the you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't,
sure.
That's electoral politics. I don't really.
Right. And we're just working within it because that's really the only option that we're given at this moment. Like, that's just what's the menu.
That is not.
Right
that is not. No, that is not the only option. That's the only option if you choose to participate in the duopoly. That is not the only option for people. People have never gotten anything through the system. Everything has been taken to the street. Every movement has been taken to the street. Yeah. Nobody has been voted in and then something automatically happened.
No,
that's a carrot we have to stop chasing because we're never going to catch it.
Well, I think that leads into a good discussion in terms of the inside-outside strategy, because there are those who support electoral politics and there are those who exclusively support outside action, grassroots action. We support both. That's where we're at, because we do believe that electoral politics still matters.
It exists.
And it does exist. It's what's currently there.
It's
and
there.
Obviously, as we continue to build that solidarity movement, there are also those opportunities where you're convincing more people to say, yeah, we don't need to be shopping at Amazon. We do need to be demanding a living wage. And, we did support force the vote. There are times where you say, you do need to actually put your foot down and hold those elected representatives who claim to stand on your side accountable. But there's also building that cohesive movement outside of electoral politics. Because as you said, whether you look at what happened during FDR's presidency, whether you look at what happened during JFK and LBJ's presidency, even during Nixon's presidency, almost all of the primary action that was taken that was beneficial to working people was done outside of electoral politics. So if anybody else has a thought on that, or
yeah, I'll add to that. I feel like it kind of ties into what the previous speaker was just talking about, what you were talking about previously. I think that a lot of people want to strike and they love the idea of a strike, but I think that they're afraid to strike because they're afraid of losing their job. And B, if they lose their job, or even if they take a few days off of work, we don't have a system in place to have those people be able to afford those lost days of work. And so many people are already living under or just at the poverty line that they can't afford to take a day off of work. If there were governmental structures in place that actually supported people in general, such as UBI, universal health care, things of that nature, I think people would be more willing to engage in a general strike. But when employment in this nation is tied to so many elements of your existence, between just being able to pay your bills, pay your rent, have healthcare, people, I think, are really afraid to strike. And so that's where I think it does tie into both, being on the streets and electoral politics, because electoral politics comes into play if we actually had people in office who were fighting for people who are of the working class, who were giving them universal basic income, universal health care, other benefits, childcare, etc. They would be more likely to engage and stand up to these large corporations and say, no, we've had enough. This is not acceptable. But when the government and these large corporations are in bed together, they have each other's backs. They don't have it. And that's a big part of the issue.
Yeah.
One of the big issues that we are advocating for, that I think if everybody got behind, as you said, Jay, the solidarity that is absolutely necessary, we do believe that the path to universal health care is through the New York Health Act. It is
they're the closest to winning right now.
They're the closest to being able to get over the finish line. There's a lot of things in flux right now in New York that I think is working in our favor. Yeah. Not just because, we had State Senator Gustavo Rivera on, who is obviously he wrote the bill. There is a lot of momentum in terms of just the New York delegation that really wants to see it through. And the fact that Cuomo is no longer the governor, it does seem that we're not getting anything done advocating on Capitol Hill. No. But like it worked in Canada, which was through the province of Saskatchewan, and then eventually it moved to the entire country, that to me is how it's going to happen in the United States. And I think if we knock over one of those dominoes through a solidarity effort, which of course is outside of electoral politics, if you think about it, because we're fighting for an issue here. We're not fighting for a candidate. And to me, the New York Health Act is where I think a lot of our effort is going to be in 2022. And I think if we're able to knock over that domino, I think it'll spread all throughout the country.
I mean, it's reminiscent of when the first state that legalized legalized medicinal marijuana. Like, this goes back a long way. This is one of those things that I think will really help start to change things. And they have the best chance right now of getting it through. It seems like if everybody would sort of coalesce there and support it and promote it and put effort there, even if they're not living there. I mean, we're in Florida. We'll be the last state to get healthcare if they even don't cut us off of the rest of the country.
Yeah, we're getting the Bugs Bunny sawed-off treatment very, very soon. That's where we're heading at this point.
But
we'd love to hear what you guys think, because that to me, I think is a solidarity effort that I think we could all get behind.
Well, the first thing, let me explain what I mean by solidarity, because you keep using that word, and I need to make sure your audience understands what I mean by it when I say it. Unity is when it's voting for Hillary Clinton because she's a Democrat and a woman. That's unity, even though you don't agree with her politics. Solidarity is not voting for Hillary Clinton because she supports imperialist wars that kill Black and brown women all over the world. That's solidarity. Right. So that I just need to make sure there's a difference, because I don't necessarily feel like you're using the word in the way that I meant it. So I just wanted to make that
You mean standing in the same mission, having the same belief?
Well, it also includes standing in the same mission with the same strategy. It includes strategy. That's an important part to standing in solidarity.
Right.
And standing in solidarity with Black people and Indigenous people and standing in solidarity with working class white people is not the same thing. So yes, labor is important, and we should very much talk about solidarity through labor. But when you talk about FDR, you also forget that a lot of those labor protections were not afforded to Black people. So one of the biggest divides I see on the left is a sense of urgency that lacks on the white counterparts, the white leftists, the white whatever that are a part of this movement. Like when working class people, especially working class Black people who don't have health care, Black women that are on Medicaid disproportionately, so they're dying on delivery tables 3 times more than white women, our sense of urgency is a little different. And so when we get upset at our representatives for not actually representing us, it's because people are dying. White people are dying too, but Black people are dying disproportionately, not only at the hands of the police, but at the hands of our doctors, at the environmental racism, the infrastructural racism that we're dealing with. So I feel like when white leftists use the word solidarity and Black leftists use the word solidarity, it is very, very different meanings. And when, we don't take heed to that sense of urgency, as the left, we disenfranchise so many Black and Indigenous people. When we tell them that they need to hurry up and wait for some human rights that we have been deserving of, that we've constantly being left out of, because even Lyndon Baines Johnson was a racist white man. Regardless of whatever you want to yes, he wrote the piece of paper, and civil rights is what it is, right? But civil rights does not challenge the nucleus of their power. The nucleus of their power is economic and financial power, the war power. So when we pass civil rights legislation, that doesn't actually challenge the power structure of this country. It just doesn't. But actually investing in the Black community, actually investing in working class communities, actually investing in Indigenous communities, that changes the power structure of this country. And that's the reason why, I understand what y'all are saying. Yes, electoral politics is important. Yes, that is a tactic, but we have to build an infrastructure outside of the government. Seriously. The type of things that we are looking for are not going to come through legislation without a real demand. And if the people are not making that real demand by escalating actions, then what exactly are we talking about here? Because we sent AOC and all of them to Congress to fight for these same things that y'all are saying. So then we elect however many more. What is that really going to do in a white supremacist system that's on in a country that was built on stolen land by stolen people? This federal government is bought and paid for. So we're trying to go through the federal government to dismantle the same white supremacist genocidal country that we have been since the beginning, since 1619, since the first slave was brought here. We've been that country. So why we think that same system is going to dismantle itself if we keep sending all these great people to it, that doesn't really make sense to me. Movements start in the street.
It doesn't make sense, but yeah. I don't see, quite honestly, what's the answer?
I'm not against electoral. I say this all the time when I always critique voting. I'm not against it, but it's way more conversation about electoral politics than there is about direct action, and that's my problem. So we can say we're for both, but if the conversation is 80% about electoral politics, that's a lie that we're saying we're for both, because we're not.
Right. Well,
if you cite 80% of the time with a racist, can you call yourself not a racist? That doesn't make any sense. You get what I'm saying? That it just doesn't make any sense.
Except for that there's a big difference between not being a racist and being someone who supports electoral politics. But
I think that's
have you heard of Joe Biden?
Well, yeah, he also happens to be a racist. Right. But that's neither here nor there.
Have you heard of Nancy Pelosi? She's a racist also.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not discounting that. But
I mean, you were flippant about the racist comment is my issue. You were flippant about it. which shows the clash issue that we're talking about.
I was
quite frankly.
Racist comment.
I said no. You were flippant about what I said, just kind of like smoothed over it.
About
like
what?
Yeah.
Well, because I know they're racist,
and this is just exactly what Afeni is talking about. The audacity. This is exactly what Afeni is talking about. This is exactly what Nick raged about. It's the looking down upon. Just walk over my comment, my point of view. Because let's go ahead and get back to this electoral politics. You see why we would be so upset? We're screaming at the top of our lungs that we need help now. And everybody's talking about 2022.
So what would
my cousin was murdered. Do you understand me? And we're talking about 2022. This is the class divide. I can't wait. What are my cousin's kids going to do? What are they going to do? There's no more waiting for the Democratic Party. That's over. It's done. We are not unifying with the Democratic Party whatsoever. Because of this, we are dying here. We need help now.
So, Jay, what would you propose or what you would like to see happen?
I propose to have episodes like this talking about general strikes, prolonged general strikes. I propose talking about marches going up to Nancy Pelosi's office. That's what I propose. I propose calling out AOC and the squad for dealing with the Democratic Party after they're funding basically genocide through the police brutality. That's what I propose. I mean, and that's I propose serious action.
And that's what you do.
Not
and that's
voting.
What you're a proponent of on your platform. And that's really cool that you have an opportunity to be a proponent of the things that matter to you on your platform.
And that's why we want to have these conversations, because we do support the general strike. But again, it has to materialize in a way that really gets to the heart of what you're talking about, which is systemic change. Because a lot of the things that we have been fighting for are not leading to systemic change. And you're right. Millions upon millions of people can't wait. And we do need to have legitimate infrastructural change. And we feel, very lonely down here in South Florida, because we seem like we scream into the ether constantly about the things that need to be done. And, no matter how hard we try, it's very hard to get anybody.
How many family members have you had murdered? I have 3 in 20 years. Can you name 3? My uncle was murdered. He went to the hospital, drove himself to the hospital, and died at the hospital in Compton because it was called Killer King, because people were going to the hospital and die of stuff they shouldn't die from. Yeah. That was my first experience with death. Then my older brother, was murdered. That person is still out in the street, and the police know exactly who he is. And I have the restraint. And now my cousin, since 4 years old. I'm done with the PROAC. I'm done with the Democratic Party. I'm done. Okay. I'm here for direct action, and that is it.
Okay, but so let me ask you this, but why? This is our program. It's our platform. You've seen it. Like, why?
I have not seen your show. Here? I'm sorry. I have not seen your show.
All right. Well, this is what we talk about different things. We usually do in-depth interviews. We do authors. We talk about everything from environmental issues to health issues to all different stuff. And we talk about a lot of different manners and strategies, and it's not just all electoral. We do cover that. That is why a lot of people watch this. The majority of our platform was transferred over from my congressional campaign. So a lot of the people that watch this platform are from that. That's what they're into. But yeah, I mean,
so this should be shocking to them. This should be shocking to them hearing me say this, right? Hearing Afeni say all these things, like, because the people that you're naming, I'm not sure they're even hearing what we're saying. I'm not sure that that's the case.
The people
It's
that
just
I'm naming,
some of the groups that you're naming, the people, those circles, like I'm not sure they're hearing us.
What group?
The groups that you just named. You named them.
What groups did I name?
No, you're just talking about. No, Jay, I understand what you're saying. And let me.
I don't know. You just rambled off something.
No, what I'm saying is, I think that there comes a point where the entire thing just becomes useless in terms of where we're currently going. And so I totally understand where you and Afeni are coming from and the whole concept of the movement. That's why we are here. We absolutely support reparations. We've actually been very vocal at.
Please don't pander to me. Please pander to me right in my face. Do not do that, because
Jay. Okay.
Done.
It is clear that they wanted to come here
and ambush us. And that is
and
I told you, and I wasn't happy about this. And this was definitely something that I was expecting.
We were trying to have a fair conversation. We were trying to be
Yeah.
Open.
And I told you that no matter what happens, everyone's going to hate on us for however this is. And the truth is, I don't care. I'm just way too old for this shit with these people. And quite honestly, I'm in my lane. Everyone should stay in their lane and do their thing. And if they want to just run around and say crap about me, please, every time somebody mentions my name, we actually get another boost.
We dealt with enough down here with people who wanted to call Jen every negative name in the book. And, to me, it really hurts because, again, we're just trying to help.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not enough.
And they came on just to be confrontational. But here's the thing, and this is why I am so thankful that I reached out to Tim when I did, because I went through, I had to pass a note through gym class basically, but I got through to Tim Black. And I had told him ahead of time that that you had created this engagement, that I was not happy about it, this was not guests that I wanted at platform, and that I sort of felt stuck. And now the truth is we're going to get whatever flame we get. But fortunately,
I don't know. And again, it's not about that. It's the